Welcome back to the Chill Sounds and Breakdowns podcast. I have a really nice one today. I'm actually really excited about this one. I'm excited for a lot of these, but this one especially because I actually am a very big fan of this man and a very big fan of the stuff he's doing, and I can prove that because I'm always eating it, and some of y'all ate it at the festival. So today I have Jesus from Kintaro. Man, what's going on?
Not too much, man. Just chilling, enjoying the weather.
It got gloomy today.
Yeah.
But no, it's still nice. Actually, today's the perfect weather for ramen.
For ramen, absolutely.
I was gonna get here a little earlier and try to sneak some in, but I was like, no, I'll wait till after.
I don't want you're over here. All the spice already hit you.
But man, I wanna get to know a little bit about your journey, man. Like because Kintaro, I know you've through Daniel, I've kind of known a bit of your work and stuff, but I know you've been at cooking for quite a while, and you've kind of gone through a journey to learn that. I mean, kind of, where did it all start?
Well, it all started in high school. It started back in 05, so now I've been going on 17 years. So I've been cooking for a little while. Right out of high school, I worked at Harris Methodist, went to Trimble Tech, so it was like right across the street from there. Yeah. And then from there, I moved down to Austin, went to Le Cordon Bleu, and then got into fine dining for a few years, then jumped into sushi. I did a little bit over at Piranha Killer Sushi in downtown.
Okay.
And kind of bounced around to a lot of places. Shinjuku, I worked at in Dallas at Wolfgang Puck's restaurant doing sushi out there. And eventually landed the job doing head chef over at Little Lily Sushi down on Camp Bowie. Yeah, so that's where I kind of made my start, kind of built a name for myself, kind of doing that. And it was during that time, 2013, 2014, that I started like working on ramen and doing sukemen broths and tonkotsu broths. I think recently I had a feed come up where the first ever ramen broth that I did, at my house.
Oh, really?
I'm cooking it for 60 hours. It was crazy.
What?
Yeah,
60 hours?
That's how long they cook for in Japan. And like Kyushu, which is where tonkotsu comes from, they cook them for like 48, 60 hours. So I was doing that at my house, which was a pain in the butt because it's like I'm having to sit there with a pitcher and filling it up. So
oh my gosh. So this is like literally what I want to get into. Like, because I've been eating this stuff, but I know there's a certain way. Like I know one of the things is that you actually know like some of like the traditional ways that things are made, but like that's one of the things. 60-hour ramen.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? Like I guess like when you sleep and stuff like that. Do you have like alarms where you have to like get up?
So now so obviously that's when it all started. I was doing those 60-hour broths. I found that I've kind of learned things here and there because at the time I was just kind of picking it up. It was really weird because this is back 2013, 2014. There's no other ramen shops here in town. So I'm trying to do this all at home, and most of the recipes that you were pulling up on Google at the time or pulling up in books, if there were any, were like, you simmer for X amount of time or whatever. So I'm like, dude, this has got to be wrong. So I finally like Googled a recipe in Japanese. Like I like typed in Japanese characters. And I got a recipe from Taiwan, of all places, translated the whole thing, and it was the first time that I ever saw boil vigorously. Like, you gotta boil it, and you gotta like beat the calcium, the everything that's in there. You gotta beat it out, and that's how you make that white broth. I started like really playing around with it. My cat hates me. She was walking around all wet and damp, and like it's like a sauna in my house, trying all these recipes out. But I eventually got it down. Left Little Lily, I think it was like 2014, and I moved to Seattle because I wanted to actually work in some ramen shops. And at the time, there wasn't any here. When I left, Tenoshi opened for the first time out in Deep Ellum. And then after Tenoshi, Hanabi opened, like a year or so later, right when I was starting to come back from Seattle. But in Seattle, I cooked at Santoko, which they have like 60, 70 chain restaurants around the world. And then I worked for Kukai Kizuki Ramen, which at the time had I think they had like 28 worldwide. So more than anything, it wasn't so much to like take recipes or anything. It was I wanted to learn how do you keep these broths that take 12 plus hours alive? Like, how do you go shift to shift to shift, keeping these going? So that's
true. Like knowing that it takes that long to make them. Like, okay, how do I do they only last for that day? Like, what happens if that doesn't sell or whatever? You got to plan ahead of time. But I guess more really, you just wanted to be like in a place where they've been doing that, because you said they were just starting to pop up here. So you kind of had to travel to be in a place where it was readily available, and you got to go around to a few places and see the differences, which I'm sure you saw that like when you were doing like the sushi or like moving around, kind of same thing. Maybe learning like from other people and kind of styling yourself.
I guess a lot of it, what attracted me with ramen. So I did sushi for about 8 years before I jumped into doing ramen. So with sushi, there's a structure. When you talk about sushi, it's something that's traditional from Japan. It's got a set way of doing things. You can kind of move things around, but for the most part, you're limited. With sushi rice, it's got the vinegar on there. You're limited as to what you can do. Now, we were very explorational at Little Lily. We were trying to do a lot of different things, but at the same time, I kind of kept hitting that where you can't go a lot beyond that. Now, not to say that the biggest push in sushi is good rice, fresh fish, and you got it down. You don't mess with it too much, and you're golden. Where in ramen, it's an imported dish from China. It came over with Chinese immigrants into Japan. Then the Japanese took it and it's like, let's make it our own. Let's add soy sauce to it. And then in the 40s, it was by accident that they discovered tonkotsu. A chef, the story is the chef left it overnight, forgot about it, went to sleep, and then he comes back and he's like, hey, what's this white milky creamy broth, and why is it so delicious? So it was like a mistake. And then when you got up to Sapporo, then in the 50s, 60s, they started adding miso to it. So all these things kind of like happened gradually. It wasn't something that was just always there. So when I started doing it, I guess really the only thing that makes ramen is the noodles, the alkaline noodles. They're like chewy noodles. From there on, it's like a blank template. Like you can do whatever you want with it, and that's what I wanted to do,
Oh, okay. So it allows for, I guess, more experimentation. I guess that you can kind of like throw your own type of like, style and flavors into it, which, because that's the way it became what it was, because it I guess like we were saying with sushi, like there's a way to do it, structured. That's the way. You kind of don't waver off too much from that.
Right.
But with ramen, like based on what you're telling me, like it evolved into what it is through time, and I think it's probably still continuing to evolve. It's kind of what you wanted to add to it.
Absolutely, and that's again why I was attracted to it, because as a chef, you don't want to be limited by constructs. You kind of want to be able to do your own thing and still be within the realm of what you're doing. A chef wants to be able to make whatever sauce he wants for his steak, whatever toppings he wants for his burger. That's what the challenge is, like creating something that's fun. And I eat ramen, every single day of the week, pretty much. I want to say about 4 to 6, 7 bowls a week. I eat ramen, and I don't like eating the same thing every single day. It's kind of like what I'm in the mood in, and that's where a lot of the specials that we do kind of come up. And I do probably 10 specials for everyone that actually makes it to the restaurant. Like I make so many different experimentations and flavors, and I'm like, this doesn't work, or this works, or this needs a little more work. So I have like a little notebook where I have like projects that I'm working on for for ramens that I want to try and things like that. And then once I finally have one that, it's like, okay, I want to do it, then I just kind of refer to that little notebook and piece together like something that
work out the kinks. So it's still figuring out basically every idea that you have and put it down like in the notebook, and then kind of decide, it's like, okay, I want to work on this one now.
Absolutely.
That's really interesting. Like, cause I mean, obviously, like it's not something that I'm super around, but being able to see like the creative process behind ramen. Because one thing when I was speaking about like the festival, I was like, you know what? I like that it was all arts based. I go, even like the food, like the ramen we had was like, there's an art to that. Like I know an art to creating like what you're putting out and making it. Like there's a process to it, and it's a creative process. And I've never really been around like I guess like someone who's like a chef and like their creative process. So it's really interesting to hear like how you go about that, because it's cool that we like even like musicians and like artists really keep that little notebook with the ideas of like okay, let's work on this today.
I mean, as I get older, I've noticed that I lose track. When I was younger, I had notebooks, but I didn't really use them as much as I do now. And now I use them more because I guess as you get older, you actually get more creative. It's just that if you don't jot it down, you tend to be more forgetful. So it's like if you don't wake up in the middle of the night and write down that dream you were having, or write down whatever, like you're eating somewhere and all of a sudden it's like I try something and I'm like, oh, it's like, what is this? What does it remind me of? And I text myself. I like have an open text with myself where I like text myself. It's like, oh, dude, it's like try this or this flavor. And it's just like a list of ingredients or whatever that I'm like, it's just something clicked at that time. And I just don't want to forget it. So I want to be able to.
A lot of creative processes require that. It's kind of like strike when the iron's hot. And even if you can't like immediately get to the kitchen, like to like start working on something, it's like, okay, there's a reason why the inspiration hit. And like I said, you could have been like a certain smell that you got, or like you tasted something and realized like, oh, in your head something clicked together, and it's like, okay, I need to write this down before I convert, because you got a whole day ahead of yourself, especially like depending on where you are. If you're not anywhere close to being back in like your home base to like start working on something, or if you're busy, you need to have like that reminder to be, okay, oh, what, instead of just thinking about like, oh, what was that thing that I earlier today? It's like, oh no, it's here, kind of. Right. But no, definitely like jotting stuff down. I know for me, like being in a band and like doing vocals and stuff like that, like my phone's filled with just like voice memos or like video recordings of just like little hums. It's like, oh, I thought of this idea, and it literally, and I need them, and it goes back because I always like scroll back through it and I click it and I'm like, I don't remember this melody at all, but I'm gonna work on it now, like because I found it, that or like lyrics or stuff that I've written down or different ideas.
I've heard that from musicians, whether they're mainstream or like local or anything like that, where they talk about having melodies, having lyrics or whatever written down, and they sit on them for a year, 2 years, let them mature, and then you go back to it. It's like, man, what mindset was I in when I did this? And it sounds great. Why haven't I touched it again? Like you just forget about it, and then you recycle to it, and you're like, wait a second, it's like I can use this.
There's something, you either, there's two things. One, you either the idea hits and you work on it then and there and figure and try to encapsulate the moment, the reason why you thought of that.
Right.
If not, then like you write it down, because sometimes you'll come back to it and be like, I don't remember why I wrote this down, or like this. But then you'll have another moment where you go back and read it and be like, oh yeah, and you'll run through it again. And it's trying to, because all music is like trying to capture a specific like emotion or feeling, whether it's like with the instrumentation or whether it's with like the lyrics you're writing, or melodies that you're singing. It's all about capturing emotion, and you have to be able to get into that mindset. So you either strike now or find the right moment to strike later. Whenever you can. So definitely like keeping track of that is incredible. And like I know it's hard with music, and then like with recipes, I'm sure it is, like with the taste, like your palate, like developing
that. And that's the thing, like right now I think at this restaurant, not even including the time where I've done ramen before, and I I had oni ramen, and I did multiple variations and kind of built on top of that when I opened this one. It's like I think I'm on my 14th or 15th version on my tonkotsu broth. Like I'm constantly changing, adapting, and that's like major changes. I make adjustments here and there, but then they don't stick, so I don't count those. But I'm on like 15th iteration. Like it's got different percentage of bones, because the main thing is pork bones. It's not like in a tonkotsu broth, which means pork bone. Literally, tonkotsu means pork bone. So it's got the pork femurs. I use heads. I was using backbones at one point. Took those out. Then I'm using like the pig's feet, and then now I've started adding. So I'll cook all day. Like usually I get in at 6 a.m. to my production kitchen down on Camp Bowie. I start at 6 a.m., get those rolling, wait for them to boil, skim them, and then for the rest of the day, I just kind of babysit them. I'm like dripping water to make sure it doesn't get too low. And then I usually turn them on a really low heat around 10, 11 p.m. at night, and then let them ride, and then I'll come back at 6 a.m., crank them up. No water, now I'm just reducing to like a certain thickness. So most of my broths cook for about 20 to 24 hours. So I'm trying to find like, bones are alive. Like you don't know if that pig was stressed out or if it had like the nice life. You don't know it. So this is what I like the challenge. It's something that's always alive and organic. So I could follow the same recipe every time, but every broth finishes maybe a centimeter higher, a centimeter lower, because it's just a fat content. I'm looking for some kind of bubble, something that tells me it's like, all right, I'm ready, kind of thing. So I had veggies the very last day, so they're a little more forward. I didn't used to do that. I used to either not put them in there or leave them, like add them at the beginning, and I kind of like burned off all the onion and garlic and ginger, so now they're forward. And then at the last 30 minutes I add in kelp and fish flakes right at the finish, and it just works. Like something flavor wise right now, I'm really happy with the broths, but again, a year from now you're going to come back in here and it's not going to taste exactly the same, and that's what I want it to be. I want it to be different. I
think now like saying like the growth in it, because I remember, I think when you first opened, because I'm fascinated right now because the tonkotsu is what I always order, so I'm like Pat, like, oh yeah, tell me about what I'm eating. But no, I think even like from when you opened, like in this location, when you opened, because you were in Arlington for a bit with Kintaro, and I tried it out there, and then like coming back here, then something was a little different here, and I was like, oh, okay, like something changed up. And even now when I've had it, like the most recent time, I was like, oh, it's still like changing, which makes sense in the stuff you're changing, but also makes sense in what you're saying, that it's gonna change regardless, because of like the type of ingredients you're using. It's never gonna be like a one kind of trick pony kind of thing, you know what I mean? Like you're always constantly changing. I like the fact that you are at a point where you admit, like, yeah, a year from now it's gonna taste different, like, because you keep learning about stuff and you keep wanting to try stuff.
And I always assimilate it when I have these conversations with people. I'm like, I think a lot of it too is like, because some people will be like, oh, well, I liked what you were doing, whatever. I mean, musicians run into that all the time, right? They want the music you first put out, or they want the second, whatever you're at, you're there, like. Committed to it, and you're working on it day to day. So to you, it's always an improvement. You don't want to go back to the old you, because you want to build on that, and it's part of your foundation. But you don't necessarily want to go back to them. Like, if you want the hits, just go to, like, that's what McDonald's is known for. They've been serving the same burger forever. So it's like, we want to just continue not playing the hits. We want to continue exploring and doing something different. It's not saying that sometimes we go a route that we're like, oh, let's backtrack a little and go this way. But it doesn't mean that, you know, we're just going to continue doing the same thing. Because I think in this industry, in the food industry, if you just do the same thing day after day, month after month, you might have those regulars that come every week, and then because you don't change, they only come once every month, and they still recommend you, but then they start like falling off. They only come back once every 3 months or whatever. Why? Because you don't change. You don't do anything that excites them. They're down the street at another ramen shop because their palate's grown where you're staying stagnant. So I kind of want to always keep my loyal customers engaged, and then the new ones that come in, like, you know, they come in and they try the new thing. You know?
Too. But I mean, that's what it's like, because you also have to take into account, like, most people just look at me like, no, I like what they used to do, but I'm like, you know, I have to like what I'm doing, like, in order to, like, have the restaurant or have like, you know, the band or whatever. You know, I have to be enjoying what I'm doing, and I'm gonna get bored, like, doing the same thing over again. You know, you might like it, it's like, but if I don't, and it's not keeping me intrigued, like, it might kill off, you know, the desire to, or the passion to even, like, cook, you know, if you're forced to make, like, just the same stuff all the time. So it's experimentation and, like, being able to just have fun with like, what you're creating. And, like, hey, like, sometimes, like, with music, I was like, oh, sometimes I really want to make, like, a really weird song. Like, I'm not worried if someone's gonna like it. It's just I need to do it. Like, it's just a figure out thing. And most of the times, even if that song's not a song that you particularly like, the act of, like, doing it and just going off a little bit, experimenting, going off book a little bit, helps inspire, okay, I can add this to the other music that I'm making and still progress, like, still evolve. So I really like the fact that that's the way you look at, like, your cooking and that's, you know, kind of your trajectory, that it has, like, progressed and it has, like, made new things. And I mean, I've I guess known about you since I think when you were Oni, which I'm glad that you're back here. I'm so happy that you were able to come back to this location, because it's I like when you guys put up, like, the whole mural and stuff, and I'm like, oh, that's his, like, you know what I mean, like.
I even reached out to when we took back over, you know, because this whole thing was Oni, so we reached out to Dylan Kennedy and asked him, like, hey, man, I love the artwork. Obviously, we're not, you know, Oni related anymore, so it's like, would you mind switching up some things? And it's like, you know, knowing the folklore, knowing the story, I'm like, dude, we can fit this in this here. And then he's like, all game. He's like, yeah, man, I want to continue, you know, showing my art. So I'm glad he came out and redid, like, the faces on a couple of these guys. So because I love his art. So he's so talented.
Yeah, like, and I didn't know how big, like, stuff like he was into. This was like a huge piece, and I saw the one he did, like, in the stockyards on the building, like the giant mural. But
he did the one over here too, here on West 7th, down the way. He's got, like, the Japanese fans out here. He did that.
Oh, really?
As well. I'm pretty sure he didn't. If it wasn't you, my bad.
Giving him credit for stepping in.
No,
but that's cool, man. So, like, I guess business wise, like, what was your first, like, restaurant that, like, you
The first one where I owned it was Oni Ramen. So the one here on West 7th, that was my first one. It was kind of like, you know, it's a big location. I've never been a big fan of, like, big footprints. I like being able to control things a little bit more. But, you know, the lease was there. It was my business partner had Kin before, so he had the lease here. So we signed on. We did it here, and then we opened the one in Deep Ellum, which is more my footprint. It was 1,400 square feet.
So this one was here first, and then the one.
This one was here first, then Deep Ellum opened up, and then we just had creative differences with one of my other business partners. You know, like I said, I'm always trying to evolve. They were happy with, like, you know, playing the hits, which is completely fine, and it kind of gave me the capital to launch this brand. So I launched Kintaro, and then we opened our first one out in Arlington with the production kitchen in Fort Worth. Because one of the things I felt like with it, Oni, is, you know, when I was working and, you know, you train your guys and you teach them, it's like, hey, man, this is what you want to do. This is how you want to do it. These are the steps, you know, and then you go. We open Deep Ellum, and I'm over there, you know, almost every single day, and I'm kind of, like, relying on these guys to do things correctly, and all of a sudden I'm starting to hear like, hey man, they're not doing it the same way, that you were doing it. So it's like one of the reasons I launched Kintaro, and I learned, I actually went to a few different ramen shops, and I worked for a few different chefs in that time that I took off, because I wanted to learn more. Like I'm always like looking to learn more, and a lot of it working out in Bishop Arts at a restaurant called Salaryman, like kind of like really rekindled a lot of the passion that I had. Kind of like you were saying, because I was in that zone of they just want to keep playing the hits, I was like almost starting to like fade off. Like I was like, man, I'm not even excited about cooking this anymore. And but I kind of rekindled that and then launched this. And the whole idea was we went down to Camp Bowie, so I cook everything there. That way I can be, hands-on. What I enjoy doing, every single day that I'm at work, I'm not at work. It's like I'm there having fun. I'm cooking, and I'm. Sometimes it's difficult, but it's still all within the realm of I'm having fun and doing what I'm doing. So then we opened Arlington, then we opened this in February, like the week of that freeze. Like we opened the 18th, and I think it froze like on the 21st. Oh, no. So it was like crazy. Then we closed for like 3 days. But then we were able to, bring the brats out. And I mean, it is what it is. But, the kind of the pandemic closed down a lot of stuff. I'll be honest, it's like silver lining as it helped me build a brand the way I wanted to, because I don't know if we open the doors and people already know me and then we're busy right off the bat, if it, you can fall flat on your face. So being able to open with only takeout and then being able to open only 25% capacity actually allowed us to kind of ease into the
build back up into that
exactly
crowd.
So we were able to ease, like we opened April 1st in Arlington 2020, so like 15 days after the shutdown. So we eased into like only doing to-goes, which was good because it allowed me to kind of, okay, this doesn't look right, move this here, move whatever, and it allowed us to grow without the pressure of you have customers
having
in front
people
of you the whole
in front
time.
of you waiting kind of thing. It's like, oh, okay, let me handle things a little bit.
So like I said, silver lining, I mean, I had no intention of opening my Camp Bowie location as a ghost kitchen, but I ended up having to generate enough revenue to kind of keep me going in that time. And we had a great support, from people that were, fans of Oni, and you knew me from there, knew me from Little Lily because it's down in Ridgely. So they kind of came out, and I mean, every day there were some days where I was selling more there than I was at my restaurant, which was like, it was me for a little while by myself, and then it was like one helper part-time, and it was like I was getting my butt kicked, but again, it's like you did what you had to do to survive, that.
So I've heard the term,
time.
and I actually I'm gonna use you to kind of like tell me, but what is a ghost kitchen?
So it's a kitchen that doesn't, usually very small footprint, whether it's in a commercial commissary kitchen where they have the commercial equipment and all you do, you go in and cook. Myself, I had built out a kitchen to fit me, so what I was doing, I had the storefront, but no seating, so all you could do is like come in and pick it up. So it's like the idea of a ghost kitchen is a restaurant that's kind of like just kind of floating around. Some people do it out of food trucks. Like I said, some people have like a commissary kitchen where there's like 5 restaurants in there, and so they have like 5 different Uber Eats company or 5 different companies, and Uber Eats picks up at all 5. So that's kind of what a ghost kitchen is.
Gotcha.
Something that doesn't exist, but it, you can still grab.
You
food
can still
from
grab food from it. Oh, okay. I was wondering. I was like, I've heard that term, but like I have no idea what it means. I was like, oh, is it like the spooky season kitchen? Like, I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, no, and it's actually cheaper even than, because the food truck's relatively inexpensive, but there's still some initial investment that you have to buy the truck, fix it up, have it meet their local requirements. But usually with a ghost kitchen, you could literally go, like I said, into a commissary or a commercial kitchen that's already built out, and then just basically pay your first month's rent, your deposit, and then you can start buying product and start cooking. It opened the door for a few people, and then obviously I think Tim Love and Lanny's Lancarte from Righteous Foods, he's doing like a Fantasma kitchen is what he calls it. So he's doing like fajitas and stuff, but it's a good way to like continue growing and building your brand, that already existing. For us, we used it, like I said, as a way to increase revenue a little bit. And then once the second location opened, we were able to do enough business between the two to pay for all the expenses there, which was the original setup. So I closed the ghost kitchen, and now I just have these two. And it's fun. Like I said, I enjoy it. I go in at 6 a.m., but like I also having to be there from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. just serving, and then from after that, then doing deliveries and doing more stuff in the rest. Sometimes I work, like I said, till 10 or 11 p.m., and that's actively working all day. So it's like, it's not that I don't mind it. I enjoy what I'm doing, but having to put a restaurant that I'm running, also operating on my own. On top of that, it was just a lot.
That's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I was glad to kind of let it go. But we launched a food truck for the first time at your event.
Yeah, so at Chill Sounds, you guys brought out the food truck for that was the first event, right?
Yeah, that was the very first event, and so far the only one, because we're still like looking at structure. And again, I'm sure I could do it, but it'd be like throwing something else. As I've gotten older, I've also learned that don't take on more than you can handle. Don't bite off more than you can chew. And there was the initial thing, we have the truck, it's all built out, but I told my business partner, you guys got to find someone to operate. It's like, I can, but I don't want to. It's like, I have enough going on, and the moment I start overloading myself, I might burn out again, and I just don't want to do that. I want to invest in this brand and build it properly,
And right now, like, without doing that, like, I feel like you've kind of worked out your schedule to where you're like, oh, okay, I have time to run, production kitchen and, like, still experiment with my stuff, still move up everything within to adding something else might maybe, like you said, be a little bit overwhelming to where it's like, now I'm stressed out again. Like that's the reason why, you like doing the ghost kitchen thing, but you kind of like let it go because it was getting to be a little bit too much.
Yeah, it was too much once you have like 2 fully operating restaurants. And we want to add another restaurant, and it's as long as it's all in the same scope. It's like, because if I add another restaurant, I'm cooking 2 to 4 more pots of broth, which I have the capacity to do that. So you're not really adding on. You're maybe adding on another 5 hours a week to adding another restaurant, and then in that case, I'm also adding another employee where I can hire someone else to do that work. So I have a couple of guys that work with me, a part-time and a full-time. So the full-time position became open once this opened. So it's also good because I get to share the knowledge with other people that are passionate, and then we get to continue experimenting together, because usually they have like culinary background, so we get to work together.
Yeah,
so it's cool. A lot of fun.
Bring on board people who are actually like wanting to like learn, or at least enjoy. I got to pay attention to what, because I mean you've definitely been in the industry long enough to like gather up some knowledge, and like I said, through your own experimentation, have learned like some things there. So that's really cool. I know the food truck people love that. We were still like, man, it's still gonna be hot. It's in August, ramen, and like when I looked, everybody was out there like eating ramen. Like,
well, I mean, obviously, current times we have ACs, we have ways of cooling down. But if you notice where all these like hot soups come from, if you look at pho, you look at menudo, you look at pozole, you look at that, look at where they're at in the world. They're all in like tropical and hot climates. You're right. And the reason is because you eat something hot and then you sweat, and your body temperature goes up, and you're sweat, so it's cooling down on the outside, so then you balance. So it actually cools you down. Same with spicy food. It makes you sweat, it heats up your body. So it's like all these things, it's like scientifically actually cool you down. Like you're like, oh, I can't eat something hot and hot weather. Like I said, nowadays we have AC. But, 60 years ago, it wasn't like that. You had to sweat to get that.
Yeah, you're right. Cool down. And
absolutely.
I was like, man, most of us out here, like, we're Hispanic. We're used to eating caldo and like hot in the middle of the summer. So I'm like, I'm good.
100 degrees outside. What are we eating? Caldo de pollo.
Caldo de pollo.
It's like, whew, with the tortillas. Like,
oh my God.
No, and it's something, again, we don't need it, but it's still good, man. And now, like, you can come in here and it's like 70 degrees. It's set in the restaurant, so it's cold. Like, you want to wear a sweater and you eat some ramen, you take the sweater off, and then you walk outside. It's like, why was I just wearing a sweater? It's like when you go to the movie theater where it's already cold. So it's kind of like the same way here. We just keep it colder in here, and that way you can eat ramen comfortably. So.
Yeah, that's a smart way. And people, I mean, like I said, people freaking love ramen. I don't even know when it started like blowing up, or like the trend, I mean, even you said like we didn't have any like ramen restaurants around here, and same, like I think literally the first time I'm always late to the game when it comes to food, but like I think when I heard like it's like, oh yeah, like we're going to eat some ramen, and I'm like, ramen, like the packet? Like, I was like, that's what all I think I related to. I'm like, they make a restaurant like that now? Like, I mean, I'll go. And then I think it wasn't here. Like, the first time I tried ramen, it was actually here when you were running Oni here. And I was like, what is this? He's like, oh yeah, do you want it? And it's like, you want an egg in it? It's like, oh, pork belly? I was like, what? Like, oh my God, this is delicious.
Absolutely. Like, what? Yeah, no, people would ask me all the time. It's like, you make ramen? Like, it's like Mateo. It's like, what do you do? It's like, I just sit back there with a bunch of pots of hot water and fill up a bunch of cups. He was like, what do you think I'm doing? That would have been easy though. That would have been fun. But yeah, no, it's completely, it's a game changer. Even in Japan, I've been to Japan now. So the first time I went so I could study ramen. So I was out there for about a month. Yeah, down in Kagawa. So it's like a small city, not a big city, which is kind of cool. I was definitely looked at weird. I have tattoos. I'm really, really tall and I'm really, really brown. So
that's a thing, right? Yeah, like tattoos and stuff. Like
I couldn't go to certain places because I was a foreigner or because I had tattoos, one or the other, and they're like they show pretty well. So there's a couple of places I couldn't go, but at the same time, it was nice being in a small city because you got to experience like a local culture. There's like a lot of different people that were growing things like that. But overall, the ramen was still really good. So I went out there, learned how to, took some classes. Even though I'd already worked in it, I went to like further set the foundation of what I was planning and what I was wanting to do. And then, I came back to the States and worked on Oni Ramen, and that was a lot of fun. But then obviously in Japan, I don't know how much people know this, but in Japan it's actually dashis, which are fish-based broths, and clear broths are actually the most popular, where in the United States it's tonkotsu, the creamy white broths, because guess what we like to eat? We like to eat fat, greasy food. So it's like we gravitate towards something that in Japan you don't see. There's 80,000 plus shops of ramen in Japan, and out of those, not even half of them are just tonkotsu, which in the United States, if you're not serving tonkotsu, you're doing something wrong. So, so it is definitely learning. Like there was all these recipes that I had, and I'm like, well, I can't use half of those because they're not going to work in our market. So we were talking about earlier, we were saying, we have to find not want to continue playing to his, but at the same time you also have to play to your crowd, to the populace. So you still have to make something that and it's not taking anything away from the tonkotsu. I'm still having fun doing it, but it's also something that we have to do to set an American style ramen, like what it's evolved to. We have to serve, like tonkotsu always has to be on the menu.
So it's a lot more. You said fish.
So in Japan you have a lot fish heavy, but then also a lot of fish broths and clear broths, whether it's clear chicken, clear pork, or they're called like chintons, like clear broth. So those are the most popular in Japan, and then they also distinguish between shoyu and shio. A lot of places do that here. I just mix the two. I like salt, but I also like the sweetness of soy sauce. So I season my broths with both. So in Japan, if you look at like what the four main ramens are, it's shio, which means salt, shoyu, which means soy sauce, tonkotsu, which means neither seasoning, it just means pork bones. I don't know how it got its own category. And then miso, the soybean paste. So those are like the four main. I basically do a tonkotsu season with salt and soy. And then I do the miso on the tonkotsu. So they're all like tonkotsu based with like seasoning.
Just added seasoning to top it. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm Texan too. I like biscuits and gravy, so I like rich, creamy broth. So.
I like that.
So.
But that's cool that you went like all the way over just to like kind of like learn about it. You said you've been twice?
Yeah, the second time I went to Tokyo, and I actually built the whole thing around a ramen festival. So it was like October of 2019.
There's a ramen festival? Hold on.
Yeah.
DJ, we need to talk, okay? Screw this music festival. We need to do a ramen festival.
Yeah, so what they did is they brought... it was a 7-day event or 6-day event, and the first 3 days they had 10 shops from different parts of Japan came to Tokyo, and then the last 3 days 10 different shops came from different parts of Tokyo, or not different, but Tokyo, from Japan. So different parts of Japan came here, and I still have the intent of going to Sapporo, which is on the northern island of Hokkaido, and it's just a different Nagoya. There's so many cities I want to hit, but it was a way of tasting ramen from different regions of Japan all in one place. So I built my whole trip around going to this event on like the very last day of the first 3 days and the very first day of the second 3 days. That way, like back to back, I think in 2 days I had about 30 bowls of ramen, like where I was eating and double eating and then still going to shops around Tokyo and eating. I ate a lot, but I walked a lot too. In Japan, it's like you walk everywhere, subways and walking everywhere. So, I did that the second time. I ate a lot of ramen, and again, when I've traveled, I always bring back ideas and things that I could improve. And all within the realm of what's going to be accepted in Texas. We are in Texas, and I think that is one thing that I always do have a little bit of a debate with people is they're like, oh, it's not authentic. I'm like, set up an authentic, shop of any kind of food or any kind of sound and have it be successful here, you still have to play to your crowd, like I was saying earlier. You still have to play to the crowd to a degree. Texans, we love thick. We already talked about, we also like sweet. You got to think like what we eat. We eat ketchup and we eat barbecue with a lot of things here, so we tend to have like a sweet tooth to things. So we also have to like fold that into like what we're doing to make it palatable to people without them knowing I do.
Holy crap! That's like I'm literally like just staring at you. I'm like, oh my god, he calculates all this stuff, and he knows like how to do it. But I mean, you're right. Like people will complain, and like it's just like, why? Like, why are you like hating on something? Like, because I mean, as to run a business, like you gotta sell. Like,
you gotta sell.
So you're gonna have to make compromises where you can't. Now you're not gonna compromise the entire like dream and like effort that you're trying to do, like with still being able to try new things, but at the same time you still have to have part of the business mind. Okay, like if this goes under, I can't do it anymore.
Right?
So it's like I gotta like I think you just adapt to where you're at. So I mean, if you opened it somewhere, I'm sure if you opened it, back when you went to you said you went to Portland when you were
Seattle.
When you went to Seattle, I'm sure it would be different up there with whatever.
There's definitely a little bit of an adjustment. I remember actually when I worked at the shops out there, it was a little saltier. Again, usually even in Japan, it's like a little more salty, a little more greasy. Grease a little lower in Seattle, but a little bit more salt. Like, and it just changed because it's just kind of the population and what your main customer base is and things like that. And it's not taking anything away. We've had great support from all of our customers, so it's not like ragging on that. We hate there being complaints. It's just more of a we have to adapt to it. Like you were saying, it's a business. We still have to make money, but at the same time, we want to have fun doing it. So it's like you're walking a fine line everywhere you're going. You want to have fun. You want to make things that are interesting and weird and that keep me engaged, but it can't be so weird that it's like off the chain. So that's why I like doing the specials. I make some specials that are for the foodies and for the chefs that come in here and for the people that have already tried our tonkotsu multiple times, and all of a sudden you have this different dish that's a play on the tonkotsu or whatever, but we still have the tonkotsu, but we have other dishes that kind of feed into it, so people can I
think that's the right way to like balance your creativity, and it's like, okay, we'll still like make the stuff you love, but it's like we're gonna throw in like some cool stuff that we're working on, because that way, I mean, it keeps it fun for you, and then like I said, seeing you have fun with it are gonna make your customers just like want to try it even more. That might not be what they like, but they're gonna be more adventurous, and I feel like a lot of people fall into like their unique patterns, and they're like, oh no, I like this, and I'll tell you, like I'm one of them, except like every now and then when I'll go, I'll just be like, what is this? And then I'll try that. And then maybe I don't like it. But, it's the only way to find out. Like, it's the only way to create.
I'm the same way, man. I'm a good creature of habit. I have, like, my broths that I like eating, and I like this and that. But, again, like, trying to experiment and try different things. I like branch out and try other stuff. What is that called? Variety is the flavor of life. So we want to add variety, but we also know what we like. So we kind of want to continue, like, doing those things, but then just kind of sprinkle it here and there and just kind of, add a little mix. So, like, for me, it's fun as a chef because like right now I'm working on we're in November, so I'm working on like a turkey broth, but I'm going to season it with mole, which is traditionally mole is made with turkey. So I'm going to take turkey broth and then I'm going to season it with mole. So it's like bringing in my Mexican heritage and then mixing it in with like French broth making and then with Japanese, ramen broth making as well. So it's like I'm pulling from like different points to do it. But yeah, turkey is the traditional way of making mole. You're
gonna be learning.
No, people are, everyone does it with chicken nowadays. Same with but it all changes. Same with birria. Birria is traditionally done with like goat, and now it's most popular is going to be beef. That's what you see the most. When it's totally good. They both taste good. So
I mean, like I said, you just find what tastes good. But I like the when you're talking about the ramen trip, that just seems so efficient, you know what I mean? Because you got to try like basically like ramen from all over Japan, just like going to this one spot. Which
no, man, I had actually a tonkotsu from Kyushu. It was good, but that 60-hour, what they did at that shop, they do like a mother sauce. So they like cook bones and they'll skim out the old bones, and then in that same broth throw more bones in. So you never actually let your broth run out. You're constantly feeding it bones, taking them out, adding new bones. But it was good, but it tasted like a little off. Like it tasted almost like rancid pork, but that was like the flavor they're going for. They're going for that thing. And I say rancid only because I'm limited in like the vocabulary that I want to use. But it's like
Like where you can't pinpoint like
different.
the
It tasted so weird, but it's what they were doing, you know. And there's people that love it, and that's where the regionality kicked in. I'm like, man, imagine if those guys opened up out here in Texas or anywhere in the United States, they'd probably get, you know, they probably wouldn't be too successful. I had a one that was really good. It was miso with sea urchin, the uni. They whipped that into it and it had this real like seafood pudding miso taste, and it was amazing. And I actually want to do that later, like maybe next like towards March or something like that. Like that's something that I'm working on. I get like sea urchin pieces from like different places and I like whip them into my miso, and like I'm trying to find that flavor that I remember. I just haven't been successful, but that's something you'll see in the future. You'll see like miso with sea urchin.
Check back in March.
Sometime if you don't see it in March because I didn't figure it out.
It's gonna start because there's what I see urchin.
It's a balance, and whatever they did it really well. But you know, that's where we're not necessarily copying because I don't know what the recipe is, but we were trying to like find something to do like an ode to what they were doing. You know, I was blown away by it. So you know, I want to find that kind of stuff. And I try ramen places around town. My debate is never who's better, who's best. I prefer here, prefer there. It's all subjective. I'm glad that there are, you know, 5 years ago there was 1 or 2 ramen shops in DFW. Now there's, I think, over 20, 30.
Now there's a few now,
So I love it. I love that when you go to Google search or whatever, you can look up ramen shop and it actually lists ramen shops, not a generic Asian noodle pho mixed in with the, you know.
There's actually like actually specific like ramen shops and like.
Absolutely.
And it's not just all like grouped in together. But yeah, it's definitely risen in popularity, and like I said, I didn't know how popular it had gotten, and it is like super popular, and I'm just glad it's like a way to kind of like step outside like a little bit of the normal, kind of like try different things. And I do like like I said, now and then like try something like that. I came in full intention today to get a tonkatsu, but I'm not gonna do it. Now I'm gonna experiment. I'm gonna try something weird.
Different.
Try something different today.
Let's see, because the other thing that we had. What's coming into now is udon noodles. That's something that I really enjoy. It's kind of hard. Like you see it at some menus, like in some sushi bars, they'll have udon, but they're not like handmade udon noodles. There's actually a place that opened, and they're really good. I think it's Maragume Udon. They're out in like Plano area, but that's another thing that I really enjoyed, and I'll go out there and. That's one thing that I do kind of, I know that one of the things that we do here at Kintaro, one of the complaints that I hear is that our menu is really small, but I'm also very used to, like when you go to Mexico and you go to a taco stand or you go to a restaurant, they have the thing they specialize in and they don't really do anything else. They serve, 5-6 items. Same thing in Japan. When you go to a ramen shop, they have like 3 or 4 options and that's it. So they know what they do well and they just do that. Like you don't play around with doing too much. And we play around. We have a slightly larger menu than a ramen shop, but way smaller. It's like the only thing I don't like, I don't ever want to become like a Cheesecake Factory or where they have these. You want pasta, you want burgers.
They got it
whatever.
all,
they have
like
it all, and
there's where you look at them like there's no way you can do all of these good, like or well. You know what I mean? Like,
and they're fine. They taste fine. It's just that nothing like stands out, and that's kind of
you just said it. You know what I mean? Like
push,
it's fine. You know what I mean? Like but nothing that kind of blows you away and be like, oh, like I'm gonna come here for this. It's just like they kind of strike the line where it's like, it's good, like on par, like with stuff, but it's not a place where you go specifically for one of their like entrees or something. Right. At least not, I don't, but.
And there's some people might find it, and again, it's all subjective. Some people think that that's what they want and they want the consistency. But for me, that's why I like, when it's like a local flavor, whether it's a band or whether it's art or whatever, because they're playing into what you know and what you do, So like when I see some of the art in the murals, they're for Fort Worthians, like it's for us, like they're doing it for us. Like other people might come in and they see it, they're like, oh, that looks cool, but to us, it's like, God, if you're taking the locals and you're showing them something and they're like, man, that's badass. So like that's the reaction I want. I want to impress them because they're the guys that are going to support you day in and day out.
They're the ones that are coming in.
Yeah, I'm sure it's the same way with music.
Like that's one of the things why the concept behind Chill Sounds and Breakdowns that TJ has been working on and that we've talked is that we're like, this is technically it's a local fest. Like everybody was from here, and you got to look at like our local is huge. Like because if you count like how close we are to each other, I go Fort Worth, Denton, Dallas, like anything that's around us, like it's all so close together that we have so much talent to pull from. Like, it is insane.
Yeah.
That's why when we decided to keep this going, because we were like, I was like, yeah, I'll talk to everybody who did Chill Sounds. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just keep it going and try to highlight some of these people around here, because it's limitless. Like, there's so many in different endeavors. And for me, like, it takes me out of my lane. You know, some people, like, I did know, you know, some people I didn't, you know, that knew. I didn't know them, or I didn't know what they did. And I get to learn about all these things and kind of just give me an added perspective to, like, what people are doing and an appreciation for it, because there's so much around that you maybe, like, if you just come in here and eat, you kind of don't know it. But I like being able to dig a little deeper in it and then be able to share it. You know what I mean? I don't want to just be like, oh, me and you have this conversation and I know all this stuff. But I'm like, being able to, like, to have, you know, let you, like, kind of tell, you know, story behind, like, what you're doing and, like, how you get things done, and share that with people and be like, oh, that's it. It just gives you more appreciation for what it is. It's art, you know. And like, it's a lot nicer when you have these people around here that walk the same streets you do, that drive down the same kind of things. It's really, it gives just that feeling of community, which is what we're trying to bring. Like, we're trying to show that most of you people, you know, you hang out, you walk past each other every day, and then you're into some of the same stuff, or some of you are into, like, opposite things, and, like, if you cross over, like, you kind of find out that you like something that you didn't know that you wouldn't give a shot. And that's why having the mix of, like, art benders out there, like, a different type of, like, not your normal, like, food out there, you know what I mean, like, with ramen, and then kind of, like, the mixed genres, and, like, everybody, like, I mean, we had anywhere from hip-hop, metal bands to indie groups, and then we want to keep growing that diversity, because that's all we're in, you know, it's all that. But you have so much talent, like, nearby and around you, and I just want, that's all it says, is just we're trying to highlight it.
A lot of it, I mean, honestly, you could, once you grow that, because I told DJ that I want to participate in it, you know, if he does it in the future, I want to be a part of it, because I feel that it can grow even larger, and it's cool, because people coming from outside, if we can continue this year after year after year, it's like people from outside come in and they see the local flavor, so it maybe even brings them to move to the city and add to it, you know, build on top of that, you know. But then you could, on it, with what you were saying, how big this area is, how thing is, like, maybe I'm throwing DJ a thing, but making more than one day, like, you can get it to that point where you can make an event out of it, but always, like, stick to the roots of it. It's all local. It's promoting us locally. That's
exactly what the appeal of it is. Because immediately it's like, yes, this could grow. Sure, we could get people, you know, coming in from out of town and doing all these things. I go, but one of the biggest things that I loved and that I like people seeing, I don't want to exclude it, but I just want to highlight how, like, locally, how much talent we have around here, how much, you know, just, you know, how much flavor this town has, and the surrounding areas with in food and music and art. Like, it's here, it's not that far, you know. Like, I got fascinated when I think during Art Chicago one year, like, I met someone who was, like, an author. They were selling their book at Art Chicago, and I'm like, you're an author? Like, he's like, from here? And he's like, yeah. I was like, you wrote a book? And she wrote 3. It was like 3, like, a series, and I'm like, that's wild to me. I was like, because for some reason I don't ever think, like, there could be a writer, like, living in the same town, but that's what it is. Like, you have people that are, you know, cooking great, like, fantastic dishes here. You have people that are making insane music that, you know, are gonna, like, be the next big thing, or get, you know, do something big. I was like, and they're right here, you know. Or even if, like, whatever they do, there's talent, and I feel like it just needs to be highlighted. It's like, so if we can give an extra platform to those people, to give them a boost, to get other people to watch them, then that's the whole goal. That's all we want to do.
Yeah, we just got to get these venues back going. I know it's hard. It's hard to say that, because, you know, we still got to respect, you know, everything that's kind of going on and kind of go with that. But at the same time, you know, we always want to, like, push forward and continue, you know, proactively, you know, pushing the boundaries of what we're doing locally. That way we can kind of grow, you know. Same with art. That's how I feel about the food. Like, when I started cooking here, a lot of times I actually cooked in Dallas, because I felt there was, like, more appreciation for what they were accepting and what the customers were doing. And it's not saying anything against Fort Worth, but for the longest time, Fort Worth was a very steak and potatoes kind of city. It had that feel. Unless, you know, I grew up in the South Side. I have friends that grew up in the North Side. There's, like, local eateries there that do, like, really legit, really good Mexican food. Yeah. But they don't ever make it. I saw a couple that, because of the pandemic, pandemic they closed, or even before they would close because there was no business. And I'm like, man, they were actually making food as good as my mom's was. And, and they're closing. Why? Because, you know, everyone's going to the McDonald's and to the payways and to the mainstream places.
The easier ones.
It's the easier route, is the more consistent route. I get it sometimes, you know, being local restaurants, we don't have 24/7 drive-throughs or whatever. We're not the most convenient, but at the same time we want to support them because it's that money that makes it back into the community a lot of times.
That's what actually gets back into the town.
Yeah,
it's actually what builds like this town around here is and the more you notice how much like bigger places are opening, like I said, more and more McDonald's around and all this stuff. And sure, like we all like, definitely nothing against McDonald's or anything, like we all find ourselves there or any one of these like fast food places, but we also enjoy the moments when you're like walk into like a place like this or somewhere local and eat something delicious and you're like, that's a special moment, you know what I mean? Like you have a moment where you're like, this is delicious. Like there's no way, like, you know, you can't get that anywhere but this specific place here.
And a lot of I've been cooking for a long time, so a lot of times I've cooked in fine dining, so I've gotten to the opportunity to eat at a lot of restaurants, but not actually in my free time. And it's something that in the past year and a half since the pandemic, and again, there's the silver lining to that, I found myself going to a lot more local stuff, whether it's businesses, whether it's like little shops, whether it's restaurants, whatever. It's like I find myself wanting to avoid hitting the big places because they don't need your money. They can survive this. And it's the small places that you going in and getting a $10 burger instead of complaining like, oh, a $10 burger, I can get it cheaper. I'm like, but that $10 actually means the world to this guy, you know. And down at Fuego Burger, down where I'm at, like they make great burgers and they're not packed like there's like a more conveniently located Jack in the Box and McDonald's, and this dude is like kicking butt with his burgers, and it's a locally owned place. And I'm like, that's who we want to support. We want to go, you know, like what you were saying, the venues, the guys that are releasing music, that's who we want to support because we're going to see that money come back in, and we're going to see the creativeness, and we're going to continue seeing the growth. So like I said, silver lining of this pandemic, I've also been able to like support a lot more local and eat locally a lot more. And I love it because now, like you said, I found things that I'm like, wow, this is phenomenal. It's like I can't get this anywhere except here.
Except for that place.
So I'm glad I gave them that little bit that they needed to continue going.
It makes it special, and it makes that important because it is important to shop, you know, local, because you can find these things all over. And like you said, a lot of these bigger places don't need our money. You know what I mean? Like they are gonna be fine, you know, with whatever they do after that. But if you're buying something local, you know that's money specifically going for that business to pay whatever employee they had there that day, to pay for whatever they're creating, to keep their creative endeavor alive. You know, it's something that you come to appreciate I feel like once more people find their own, it's easier for you to be like, oh, okay, I want to buy local, because like once you discover like the thing that makes you, you know, happy, and you find support in it, then it's like, okay, like, I want to support as much as I can. Sure, it's a little bit more expensive. You might not be able to do it all the time, but it means every now and then it's like, be like, oh, okay, let me go support something and help a business that's in the community, that's gonna, you know, help out the community, that's gonna contribute something to it, you know.
One of the things I really like lately is the pop-ups that people do, whether it's obviously food a lot. Like it's like I go to, you know, I live close to Magnolia. I live just off of Berry and McCart, so I still live in the same area where I grew up in, you know, and that goes to another length, you know, getting to my more personal side. It was like, you know, we always talk about improving our community. It's like, but a lot of times when we get a chance to move, we want to move to these real fancy, out of the way, like new communities. I'm like, no, I moved into a 1940s home in the same neighborhood where I was at, and I helped it. Like, we always complain about gentrification, like the Hemphill no se vende. Like, we always support it, but from the outside, like actually go in and buy back. So it's like, you know, kind of stretching that. But you know, I go down to Magnolia quite a bit, and I go to places like the Boiled Owl and other venues down on Main Street, you know, that are all kind of like local little digs. You were not going to find them in any other city. They have like the flavor that is Fort Worth, and I like going there, and I like seeing, you know, a couple of my friends have done food pop-ups there, and like I'm getting to drink and support a local bar at the same time, like eating this new food. And I'm like, I just hope you have a restaurant soon, because this is, you know, this is great, you know. And other venues, you know, I know Kevin Martinez down from Tokyo Cafe. He's done a lot of, like, with his little yatai food truck. He's done a lot of like little pop-ups and ramen here and there. And oh man, his ramen's pretty good. So if you ever get a chance, like, he does good stuff too. Really good ramen. So it's that we want to know and support, you know, our little local chefs and local musicians and local artists. And
yeah, man, that's the idea. That's the idea behind this. I love doing this because it allows me to go through a medium that apparently, like, people were like, yeah, you're pretty good at talking to people. I was like, okay, let me use this and actually help it contribute to something. So I feel with this, like, I give back as you know, it's not much, but I can help highlight these people around me that we have so much local talent, so much local flavor that it needs to be recognized in whatever shape or form. So I like to contribute, and I'm glad that I got to talk to you today, man. I'm actually really happy that you made time for me. And I'm sure anybody who listens and watches is going to be glad too. But definitely come check out Kintaro. He's got 2 locations still.
Yeah.
One in Arlington, and the one we're in is right here off of 7th Street. But definitely come taste this man's ramen. He's been working for years on it. He works very hard on it. And man, yeah, this was awesome. I got to learn a whole bunch about it. So,
you have to come down to the prep kitchen and watch his work. And I'm always an open book. It's like, I think one of the things I've always heard from a lot of chefs is like, if you got trade secrets and things you're hiding, it's probably because you're scared that someone can do it as good or better than you. I'm like, I'll tell people all the time, because in a year I'm going to be doing something completely different. So if you're just stuck with my old stuff, it's like you'll be stuck in the past. But no, man, anytime it's like people, I've had actually a few people stop by the place, and I'm like, I give them, I'm like, oh, you want to check it out? They're like, oh yeah, what's going on? It's like, they have these big pots. It's like sometimes my cook is in there, and I'm just kidding. Hitting like the grouch, he's like comes out. No, but they're big. I mean, I could fit myself in one of those pots where we're like cooking broths, and it's wild. It looks great. Like I said, I'm excited every day I'm going to work, even though the broths is the same thing every day. It's like I love it. Like I like watching them boiling and breaking up, and very metal. You see the meat and fat slide off the face as it's cooking. I have my phone is full of these like real morbid dead pork pictures, when I'm like, I don't share those on social media. I'm like, I did it one time and I had like 10 unfollows like in the next hour. So I'm like, okay, I won't do this anymore.
Hell yeah. I'll definitely come down there. Yeah. I'll get Daniel to come with me. We'll check it out. And we'll show some people like what it's like in the test kitchen. Yeah,
absolutely. It'll be fun. Get someone follows. I'm just don't get followers, get unfollows.
But no, thank you for making the time.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you guys for listening and watching.